Good morning, evening, and night, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another podcast or episode of the Hero of Podcast 64. My name is Ryan G, owner and head coach of Online Leader Strategy, and of course, with my co-host, the real Pete Kirkwood, a success coach, the success coach, and your empire builder. And of course, he can turn any man into a king should he choose to, you know? Now, I believe
Amen.
today's amen to that, indeed. Now, today's topic has a lot to do with heroism, as always. But now, what if you could create your own hero?
What if you could create your own superhero?
Superhero,
Because
yes.
let's be, let's be, you know, let's be fun about this.
Right,
Because growing up as kids, we saw superheroes, we loved superheroes, we thought about them as being characters, we thought about them as being real, and then somewhere along the line, we got told to grow up. We got
right,
told to be real about it. There is no Superman. There is no man who can fly. There is no man who can shoot lasers out of his eyes. There is no man who can throw a car over his head. There is no man who can breathe underwater. There is no. And our world got, crushed. Don't be a kid. Don't dream big. Don't think like that. Well, there are people who can hold their breath underwater and swim underwater and dive so deep that they basically look like they're half fish compared to your average person. They're
yeah,
like a super underwater human.
right,
And there have been times when even there's been reports of women who have been so full of adrenaline and primal instinct to save a child that they have moved a car. And they're not, um, all of a sudden throwing cars around, but that's still strength far beyond what your average woman will be able to do. But all of a sudden she's moving cars around. Okay.
right.
So why do we so quickly shun people being no, you have to be realistic, you have to be more normal, you have to be more less? Why don't we say, what do you really want to be more super about? You do you want to be super in the water? Get training, join the Navy SEALs, look in that aspirational field, because a lot of those guys, you almost think they're half fish or cliff divers or people who like a lot of people who trying to remember the name of them. They're free diving for shellfish and stuff, where they dive to a very deep depth.
Yeah,
Um,
in Japan, they usually do that, right? Where you would have a village that specializes in the deep sea diving or
yeah,
diving
I think
even for shellfish, etc. I believe has a lot to do with sustainability and you know, you name it. Right, 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 right.
so. A superpower like super strength, right? That's an easy one to quantify, to see, to demonstrate. And if you look at some of the records for what human have achieved in the Guinness World Book of Records, uh, moving very large things and lifting heavy weights. And I mean, one dude ate a plane, right? Like, what kind of strength does that take in terms of fortitude and constitution? But what about superheroes like Batman? Well,
Huh.
hang on a second. Batman's easy. Batman's easy. He's rich and he's strong and he fights hard as fuck, and he's got a strong as hell mindset, and he's intelligent and sharp, and he's human.
Well, more human than, the other superheroes, let's say.
Well, it's like, superhuman. Well, he's an alien from another planet. Spider-Man, he's bitten by a radioactive spider. It's like there's like a magic thing, like he's genetically altered, he's different. But Bruce Wayne is a guy.
Right, right, right. It
It's
is
not that
as
the bat
if
bit him and gave him superpowers. It's that they traumatized him, and psychologically he decided that, nah, fuck this, I'm going to be different to everybody else.
exactly. So he decided to become the victor of his circumstance. So how many times have we not seen such a character be put in a situation where he can't make use of his tools. He can't make use of his gadgets. He can't make use of the Batcave. He can't make use of his wealth. He can't get in contact with his team. And the only
Yes.
thing this man, this human being is left with is himself. And there's
And
where, yeah,
if you notice, like growing up, I watched a fair bit of Batman. Like I liked my superheroes. Batman was one of my favorites, but I would see how you could use that as a thing. It would be, well, now Batman has none of his gadgets available to him. He's been disarmed. What's he going to do? He's caught in an electric field where he can't use anything electronically. His Batmobile no longer works. He needs to be flying, or whatever that would be. What would he do next? And often the show didn't really get deep into it, and sometimes it did on a more philosophical level. But Batman's not the only hero who falls into that category. You look at Black Widow,
yeah,
Hawkeye, Doctor Strange. He's a little bit crossing the line. Depends on how deeply you believe in your magic and your Eastern mythology and mysticism and things like that.
sure.
And especially when you start to look into superheroes with more psychic powers and things like that, because who's to say that Gandhi wasn't a psychic superhero the way that people followed his inspirational lead?
Fair point.
Who's to say that other figures that we know the names of in history, like they didn't have some quality that was super? Now, some of the time they created that by their own determination. Napoleon, for example, his appetite and ambition was a direct consequence of the fact he was a short guy.
Mm,
He was like, no, fuck that. I ain't gonna be no short loser. I am way bigger than I am physically. So look at my power and look how big I can go. He was a superhero of his time and his day. So why don't we start looking to ourselves? Ryan, what is it about you that you want to be super at? Like, let's just talk about that as an example. What is it about you that inspires you to be a superhero, a super Ryan?
Well, there's a two-parter. The
Go
first
for it.
would be the obvious one, which has already been answered by looking at people like Napoleon.
Right.
Bigger than the circumstance, bigger than the obstacle, bigger than the curse of whatever bird, family, you name it.
Yep.
The
Big
second
time.
part would be communication. As
Yes.
or let me start personally, even if it was the greatest data specialist or business analyst or whatever, or real estate expert, without communication, I would still be subpar.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed this happened recently in the way that I surface people, right? It's just as important as getting the solution.
Yes.
Not only do they get a solution, they actually feel good working with me.
Yes.
And that makes the difference between getting paid and getting paid a lot.
Yep. It
Because
does.
it doesn't even have
Communication,
to be
specific language.
exactly, it doesn't just have to be the money. It can also be the respect and other privileges come with that.
Exactly. Exactly. Because value isn't always monetary.
Yeah,
And that relationship can be so strong because it's cool that that Batman can be like falling through the air and he can use his bat grappling hook, but it's also damn cool when Robin reaches out an arm and grabs him and pulls him up
right.
because his power is that he has an ally in the field. And that communication, it brings people, brings allies, it brings people around you, and that
Yeah,
superpower is it's not even surprising you mention it because it's the same sort of thing that I see in communication that you see. And I had an interesting conversation today with someone where we'd been walking around a concept for a very long time.
Right.
And they had said to me, what you're saying is, it's not that I can't like get on board with it, but I can't assimilate it into my life and my language because it comes across as sexist. I can't operate with it. I can't use it. I get it, but I can't use it. And I'm like, all right. And over time and over time and over time. And then eventually, when we had a conversation about leadership and we had a conversation about things like that, and all of a sudden it was, well, hang on a second, that language, that's not sexist to me. Perfect. Now we're playing the game. And as that communication got smoother and fine-tuned and all the rest of it, all of a sudden it was like, well, hang on, now I can give you this ball, and you couldn't hold this ball before, so now you can have it. Which it's like all of a sudden I can start breaking the rules of the game. You can only kick the ball in soccer. But if I can convince you that if I can somehow use the language to show how I can kick with my hands, well, let's pick that fucker up. Everyone's like, bro, that's unfair. Nope, we're kicking it with our hands now. Fuck you. Because we've used our communication to break the game. That's a weird analogy that wouldn't really make sense, but it shows you how crazy communication can be in the results. You will see instances of this where someone will get up and they'll do something in a room and other people will be like, did they just fucking do that? And everyone will be like, did that really happen? And we've seen that happen. When someone's caused something to happen, normally there's a layer of social play going on that's not readily apparent. You know, you don't know that somebody has said something in the background or whatever that's caused that thing. So it looks almost like magic.
Right.
And all of a sudden, here we are in the realm of David Copperfield and sleight of hand and the illusionist and the prestige and the superpower you create with communication. It's like there's a lot of superheroes that have touched on it, because communication is the transferring of information from one human to another. It can be done by language, can be done visually, can be done audibly. I mean, technically, it can be done by taste. I can give you food, you know. So you think of a superhero like Gambit, who was about illusions and things like that, and his card tricks and the rest of it, where that style would portray a certain image. It would portray a certain beingness to him where people would be less likely to go, oh yeah, I got you, because he would appear so sneaky and so tricky that you'd never be 100% sure if you kind of had him in the way that his beingness communicated. It said, you think you got me, but you're never quite sure if you do. So anytime you always had the upper hand, you'd never feel confident in that position against him. And it was like a psychic attack, but it was done so subtly you wouldn't realize you were being tricked. You would just not be sure. And that level of power is so available to us in our day-to-day life. Because I know lots of people that walk along, well, not lots, scale that back. I know a few select individuals with the power to walk into a room, hold a beingness, and everyone in the room go, like there's been mind control. Like they've gone, you will all be confused. And people are just like, I don't know what to do. Because we grew up watching superheroes where you see them use magic and skills and superpowers and things, and like they're sometimes explained, right? Like Spider-Man. Sometimes his web shooters are technological, sometimes they're biological. And there's sometimes, you know, hand waved, like Superman's lasers out of his eyes are just something he can just do. But when it comes to these effects in real life, you know, when someone gets up, goes like this, and 4 or 5 other people get up and walk out of the room with them, from a very low level perspective, it looks like magic, right? For a child, they're like, wow, magical. He can just summon people. And then you get older, you're like, oh, that's a nod. Like that's a signal that they've
Mm.
predestined that when he made the signal, but you get to a level in your communication where the effects you create are like being a superhero. They are like magic. And as you choose what abilities you want to create in your superhero, it comes down to, I don't want to say the word repetition, right? But it's actually not repetition, it's love. It's love, right? If you're repetitively practicing something, you won't become super at it. You can become really good, but you'll never be super. But if you love practicing it, you can become super at it.
What I'm getting from this is, on the one hand, well, a combination of understanding the heroic concepts of
Mm,
creating that hero and being very conscious of um, who you want to be,
yeah.
truly who do you want to be, and acting accordingly. It is, imagine you're a samurai back in the olden days, and you just received a parcel for your lord or whatever, and all of a sudden it starts raining cats and dogs, right? Now you want to complain because you don't want to get wet. But as you observe the environment, you see peasants, common folk, merchants, whatever, getting pissed off, the wares, of course, are getting wet. And you start to
Panicking,
realize,
scattering.
exactly, and you start to realize, if my Lord was here, if my teachers were here, if I could view myself, right, would it make sense for me to complain?
Exactly. And like that's a perfect, you've told this story before, I swear
A
to God,
lot
because
of
it really
times
is.
I've told this one. It comes from the book Hagakure. Now I don't know where I have it, but it's a very simple doctrine in moving with dignity.
Mm, yes, because you're in that moment, your inner self says, how do I choose to be?
Yeah,
And it's like, I'm now super strong against rain because I see my power in my ability to say, I'm bigger than this obstacle.
yeah.
And from a peasant's perspective, you're a god because you could just walk through the rain unaffected like a god.
Well, it's even better.
That
I can push the dichotomy even further when I say that only, on the one hand, the difference between us and them, or the samurai and the peasants, will be, for the peasants, it's a problem. For me, it's just a discomfort.
correct, right?
And I can
And
push it even more. It is something I developed, is to say, if the rain is the only thing that I don't like about today, out of 100 or an infinite amount of events, right?
potential
Then the
amount of
rain
event.
is not that bad. And immediately from the problem to it's just a discomfort to it's actually not that bad. You can immediately feel how the burden that you've being have placed on yourself is being slowly taken away, as if you know you're a sandy hill and you're being rained on. So now the rain becomes a blessing.
Well, that's where I was going to go with it next, right? Because it's such a choice how you use the superpower that is your perception of self, right?
Yeah.
Because what if you decided that you are grateful for this opportunity to be cleansed by the heavens. And now all you want to do is get more wet. So you're not wet enough. So you've got a bit of rain on you, now you're not wet enough. And all of a sudden it takes on an entirely different perspective, right? Because as soon as you think, well, yeah, I want to be wet, not, oh, I want to stay dry.
Right.
As soon as you're getting in the shower, as soon as you're getting in a shower, when you're looking forward to it, like you've been working hard, you're sweaty, you're dirty, you're covered in shit, and you're just like, that shower's sitting there, and you're like, yeah, let's get into it.
Well, it does make sense, right? Because if a samurai goes into battle, rain is to be expected, right?
Thank you
Blood,
for
mud.
clearing the dust. Thank you for clearing the mud from my eyes, the blood, and the rest of it. The rain is just wicked, because otherwise I'm in this dusty, hazy, like there's so much dust. I mean, if you don't see this, right? When you see modern recreations of battles and stuff. But if you've got a lot of people literally fighting in one spot, you're going to create a dust cloud. Like they're going to trample up the earth, and it's going to be, and if it's either wet, it's going to be muddy and rainy, and that could be better than creating a dust storm where if you've got grit in your eyes, it's hard to see.
You're muted.
Phone calls.
Of course.
So the perspective is so open to you. And if you're in that position where you can catch the moment of realizing, I don't want to be a peasant towards this rain, I want to be a superhero towards this rain. If you can catch that moment, then you can choose how you react.
Exactly.
And
you're taking
that
control of your experience.
Correct. And that association of deciding that rain is your element, right? Water is your element. You're mostly water. It's nature reaching out to you, and you embrace it in a way that energy, like someone who's trying to get out of the rain, if they see you as responding to the rain in that way, where you're almost opening up to it, they're going to be like, whoa. Because you've just demonstrated such a different beingness that you're now like a superhero. You're like a water elemental. Like, what the fuck?
See.
And what we like can take from this is that in our minds, in our beingness, we can see the, how would I put it? Opportunity to reframe how we choose to feel or see or think or relate to whatever circumstances or conditions or things that we're in, and pick how we want to be. Do you want to be a superhero about it? Like, I can remember the times early on in my personal development, I was like, I just don't want to be a little bitch about this, right? I don't want to be a crying bitch about this. I'm crying about it right now, but I don't want to be like that. And those were the first steps of me, like, how do I do something different? How do I be better than this? And now I'm in a beingness where something happened the other day. I remember there's been a few things that have happened the other day. And straight away I cut through to this thing where everyone was like, well, yeah. And I was like, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. And there were a few people in the way that I heard the story. And as soon as I got to the person, I said, that's the, and he went, yep. Because he was the one who'd been violated. And when he spoke on it, everyone else went, yeah, nah, that's not on, eh? That's not on. That's annoying. And I was like, no. That's someone you cannot leave your kids with them. You cannot leave your keys with them. You just can't trust that person anymore. The way that they acted with so much disregard for you and such fearful regard for self shows that I could not go to war with that guy next to me. No way. I'd be like, no way, put him somewhere else.
He can't be counted on.
And we've got to this point where people are like, No, I don't,
Right. It's like we're spoiling our own fun, our own experience by doing such things. I
We're
don't know.
allowing a level of sloppiness
Mhm.
in our lives and those around us, that it's like, it's not necessarily a sloppiness. That might not be the right word, but it's like a size of character, right?
There's a
It's,
complacency.
yes, because you want to challenge those around you to have a bigger character, a better character, and you have to be able to say to some people, sorry, that's it. It didn't work out. And this circumstance where I heard this happen to this person, I just said, that's war. But I can see how they
Right.
took such personal responsibility, and everyone looks to them like they're a superhero.
Mm.
And now no one's going around going, did you know such and such is a superhero because he took responsibility? No one's saying that. But the way they're treating him is with a level of respect. They're treating
Yep.
him with a level of, because he's risen, he's gone, okay, hang on. Okay, hang on. Like I said, like this went off. Everybody here had some shit to deal with. And I personally feel like I had to step up, be the man, and everyone think to me, even though that's not my position. What? Okay, well, I'll just do it then. All right. And everyone's been like, look at him just do that. And he's like, what the fuck? And the people who should have been in the leadership position, the people who were in the leadership positions didn't act like leaders.
Right.
And that's when you can't, it's like, well, how can you trust someone to go to, like, whew, the whole thing goes differently. But which one is the superhero? The person who was the average Clark Kent of the day, who suddenly stood up and Superman stepped forward and did something about it. He didn't have laser beams to shoot out of his eyes, but in the moment, he had the words, right? He had
Mhm.
the words to say to the cunt, all right, fucking shoot me, go on. Not many cunts will do that. Not many people would say to someone with a gun, shoot me, right? Not many people would say to someone with a knife, stab me. Not many people would, would actually confront someone who's threatening them.
Right.
And,
Isn't it very similar to like the movies with Clint Eastwood, right?
oh, he's such a hero.
Such such a man. And what you can learn from the old movies is exactly what you're talking about. He visits a town. He's a complete stranger, but injustice will not escape him.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
It's that he is a complete renegade, yes. He's an actual outlaw, technically. But even he has standards.
Well, he has a code, right?
He has a code, right?
He actually his the thing that makes a successful outlaw is that they have a code. Otherwise they're just a thug,
Yeah,
right? And they're not romantic and they're not cool. They have to follow a hero's code, right? They're outside of the law, but that doesn't make them, like, they're an outlaw. That doesn't say anything else about them. If
yeah,
you think about it, it doesn't say anything negative. It just says they don't operate in the law. They're outside of it. So
right.
everything they do, well, are they a good one or a bad one?
Yeah.
But before we go on and we make this an hour-long episode,
Well, 5 minutes
creating
before
your
the half-an-hour mark, so go ahead.
we're on that thing. Like it's at that point where we can really branch into the topic and start expanding it, or we can start like conclusioning it.
Yeah,
So to create your own superhero, a lot of it is coming from that internal decision of how you're going to respond, how you're going to act, how you're going to be,
yeah,
and training and practicing that with love to
yeah.
get stronger and better at it. Because I don't know anything that I got good at that didn't hurt to get good at on the way, except
Yeah,
maths. Except maths. Maths doesn't hurt for some reason. But everything else I can think of, all the fighting, even cooking, I had to eat some terrible shit. I had to burn my tongue, my hands. It was never perfect. It doesn't
right.
matter what it was. So that choice to create your superhero, you're going to create yourself anyway. Like, it's gonna happen.
Fair.
And if you don't take responsibility, the world's gonna do most of it for you.
Yeah.
So what do you have to lose from doing it, from reaching out, from giving it a go, from trying to be more than you are, and creating a superhero for yourself? Like,
exactly.
That's what it's about.
Exactly.
And I think that's really the message I want people to take away from this, is to just give it a shot, to try, to reach for more, to aspire for more.
I'll build my takeaways on what you just said. Everything what you said is perfect. I would even add on, give everything in your life meaning, the struggle, your dreams. If you are, that hero, assuming you've, let's say, built that, working from the future towards the present, as the example of the samurai, he knows one day he will face both an enemy and the rain. So might as well get prepared.
Yes.
And
to do what you said, it's telling that story of your life about why you're the hero. Everyone tells the story of their life, but just tell the story of your life about why you're the hero, and you'll create that superhero. And that's probably too much free advice for a podcast.
Yeah, indeed. But on that note, right? On that note, let's end it. Any other takeaways before we end it? Fabulous.
Be the best.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Hero Podcast 64. I wish you a very pleasant morning, evening, and night. May your life never be the same. And of course, be the best. Fuck the rest. Goodbye.